Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Kelly. I'm a special ed teacher from Macomb ISD in the autism program. This is an area I happen to have a lot of experience in awareness training, emergency seclusion, emergency restraint. I know we just talked about in class, but it's a topic that needs to be covered and talked about, and so I figure I can add my 2 cents here. I will post this PowerPoint on with a link from my video because I'm going to skip through some of it because it's kind of a long presentation and I don't want to bore you all. So, why do we need to be trained? Well, in December 2016, the state of Michigan changed the laws for the good, in my point of view, restricting the use of seclusion and restraint. So, what is the purpose behind the law? We want to promote safety, health, welfare, and security of everybody, the school, community, the student. We want to keep everyone safe. So, how are we going to do that? We're going to try to be proactive and use evidence-based practices to help eliminate the need to use restraint and seclusion. What else does this law do? Ensures that seclusion restraint is only used as the last resort. I happen to have CPI training, and that's a big emphasis on that last resort always. And this law helps define seclusion restraint and emergency physical restraint and seclusion more clearly to help us all out. Training mandate. So who should be trained? Anyone who's a key personnel in your school: administrators, social workers, psychologists, counselors, and other identified school staff. So who is that? Your special education teachers, maybe your parapros, anyone who's likely to encounter situations that they might have to use these skills. Even gen ed teachers can benefit from understanding how these laws work and proper techniques and de-escalation. So what areas are we looking to train people in? There's a huge list. There's 2 pages of them, but I'm going to hit the main ones. We want to learn de-escalation techniques. We want to learn, how do you talk to someone who's in crisis? What should you do? Do you give them space? How many words should you be using? Should you be talking more, less? All these things are important. What are triggers to behaviors? Some words may be a trigger to some kids. Situations might be triggers. You just want to be aware. And knowing how PBIS works is so important. Those positive behavior support plans can be so helpful in reducing the need to seclude or restrain. And that's really what we want. Like as the law states, we really want to be in a position where this is a last resort type thing. Other key personnel area trainings. So, what are the effects of seclusion restraint on students? So, when we do these seclusions and restraints, these situations just don't happen in a vacuum. There's an impact on that student psychologically, physically, and we have to be aware of these types of things so that we're really making sure that this is a last resort once again. So what else should people be trained in? And these are basically, I gave you a whole list, but these are like the 4 big main ones: conflict resolution, mediation, social skills, positive behavior intervention, and supports. I will skip over this, but you can look that up if you so choose to. So the purpose, once again, last resort. We want to use it to keep people safe, the student, staff, and the community around the school. We want to use positive intervention strategies to help eliminate, and we want to keep the student safe. We want to keep well-being in mind, and we want to keep their dignity intact. So what are some of the prohibitions and policies to seclusion and restraint? So you absolutely cannot use corporal punishment. Corporal punishment is using physical punishment. It can be spanking, hitting, things like that, or it could be like your old football coach or volleyball coach back in the day who would tell you to take a lap. You can't deprive people of basic needs. That means you can't use taking someone's lunch away as a punishment. Child abuse, I think you all know what that is. And seclusion other than emergency seclusion. You can't use seclusion as a means because you don't have the staffing to teach this person in a classroom. That is not appropriate. You can't use noxious substances as a means of physical pain or extreme discomfort. So this is like a huge like area of like you think to yourself, well, who would do that, right? But you have to think to yourself, you have to be very careful when you're using like diffusers or essential oils in your room because that could possibly be mistaken as you using a noxious fume or something like that. Mechanical restraints and chemical restraints. So mechanical restraint is like using like a strap to tie someone down, and a chemical restraint is using medication that isn't authorized by the parent. A lot of our kids get PRNs. That's like an in case of medication that's allowed, but you call the parent and you get permission before you give that. So any restraint also that impacts negative breathing, negatively impacts breathing. Sorry. So we don't want to be bending students over, putting them on their face down, 4-point restraints, things like that. You have to be very careful. You do not want to end up in the news for doing something like this. Prone restraints, like I said, physical restraint other than emergency, and any other type of restraint that hasn't been covered. I talked about what corporal punishment is already back a few slides ago, but there it is, the legal definition, and where you can find it in the state guidelines. So chemical restraints, as I mentioned, medication for the purpose of restraint, unless it's approved, like a PRN. Mechanicals, no using straps or anything like that. And prone, the restraint of an individual face down. 3 big no-nos right there. So what exactly is emergency seclusion? It's when you keep a student from physically being able to leave a classroom. It should only be used when the person's an imminent risk to themselves or others, and it does not include lockdown drills or other procedures for people's safety. So if you have a student and they start ransacking your classroom and you remove your other students, that's okay. When that student then goes to leave the classroom that's ransacking your room and you prevent them from doing so either by stepping in their way or shutting your classroom door, you are now secluding them. And that is allowed, but you have to understand what exactly you're doing and when you're doing it. What is a physical restraint? On emergency physical restraint, it prevents the student from moving, restricts their movement. Should only be used, once again, when there's an imminent risk to safety to people's or others. You cannot use it as a replacement for appropriate, least restrictive environments. And does not include calming or comforting like an upset student, um, minimum contact to escort or assist with tasks, or prevention of dangerous impulsive behavior. So if you have a student who is a self-abuser and you grab their hands as they go to do it, that's not a restraint. Or if you're putting your arm around a student to kind of guide them somewhere, that is not considered a physical restraint. So within this law, there's loopholes to use reasonable physical force. You can do it to maintain order. There's a fight in the hallway to prevent physical harm to self or others, or attain a possession of weapon or dangerous object, or to protect property. Now, me personally, there's not a lot of property that I'm going to go out of my way to restrain a student over. But if they're trying to break a window with their hand or some other object or something like that, that's definitely a situation I'm going to get involved with. A couple years ago, I had a situation where a student had a dangerous weapon, he had scissors, and was threatening a secretary, and me and another staff person had to go in and subdue that person. Not quite according to CPI guidelines, but under the state of law, Michigan state law, I was using reasonable force. So this is one of the areas where people were really upset initially in my school district when they changed the law. But when you look at the exceptions to the law, it really helps give you a clear guideline of when there really is a dangerous situation. And it's really nice for me and for my staff when I teach this type of stuff to my school district at PD and stuff to really help clarify that you can do certain things under certain conditions, and these are those conditions. So there's going to be a lot more coming down from the Michigan Department of Ed over the next year or so, but here's some Q&A type things you guys can look at to kind of help explain some situations and things like that. I'll just kind of cycle through these real quick, and you can look at them on your own. And here's my reference page. And with that, I hope you guys all enjoyed what you got to see. I hope this was helpful to you all. And I really enjoyed this semester with you all. Have a great year. Thanks. Bye.